Hi, it's Chase Ferguson again with Liberty University. I'm a master's in history student. Um, Today, we're going to be discussing the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America and the implications that um, basically followed immediately after the ratification of the Constitution and even all the way up until today. But first, I need to go ahead and cover some basic housekeeping issues. As a Christian historian, it's our duty to always be open, honest, and objective in anything that we report or claim to be true. So we should always be as absolutely as honest as physically possible, as humanly possible. Certain things we may or may not know, or may be speculation. We should be upfront and honest about that. So just wanted to get that out of the way. First, I want to start with a reading of the Constitution's Second Amendment, and we'll do that now. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And I think what's most important to notice here is maybe a little bit of punctuation, because I believe that speaks volumes to the original intent. And we're going to talk about original intent and modern interpretations. And is the Constitution a living document, or is it something that's set in stone? A well-regulated militia, comma, being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, comma, shall not be infringed. It's breaking it down for us in a multi-part phrase there, letting us know that each one of these things is very important. But I think the most important part of the verbiage there is what comes after the final comma: shall not be infringed. Shall not be infringed. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, I would be remiss if I did not have a few show and tell things to go along with here. I am in the United States Navy. I'm also a police officer in Sumter, South Carolina. So all this is perfectly legal, I promise. But having said that, firearms. You can't talk about the Second Amendment without having some firearms to discuss. Without the Second Amendment, it'd be very unlikely that I would be able to possess these and have them here for use as a prop in my video. Having said that, I've always used firearms for good, and I think that firearms have been used for good much, much, much more than they have ever been used for bad in the United States, or pretty much anywhere for that matter, whenever we look at the whole world per capita. They are a tool. There are such things as collectible firearms that are just simply there to be appreciated and looked at. But for the most part, anything that's modern manufacture, or it was modern manufacture at a given point in time, is a tool. It's there to put food on your table, or defend yourself, or even just enjoy a sport. But most importantly, to defend oneself, and in the case of the United States of America, to defend one's nation against a tyrannical government. And there is no other means that's more efficient than a firearm to do so. So, having said all that, the original intent, when you look at James Madison and his writings, obviously being known as the father of the Constitution, he considered the militia a vital, vital part of the United States' ability to become independent, to earn and gain their independence from Great Britain. And without the private ownership of firearms, it would have probably been impossible. At the end of the day, the militia was compiled of common everyday people who would show up and go to muster, which is a group meeting or gathering to make sure that everyone's arms and equipment was up to date and well maintained. All these things are imperative. The National Guard is a little bit of a different thing, which a lot of people like to argue that that's what a militia is the National Guard, a state maintained thing, but not necessarily. While the state is responsible perhaps for organizing it once it's called up, at the end of the day, who is the militia? It's the body of people that are there to be called at a moment's notice to address any major issues that a state may face, or to overthrow tyrannical governments. So the Second Amendment has often been called the teeth of the Constitution, and I think that's right. The First Amendment allows us to have a redress of grievances against government. We can complain and we can say, government, look, this is what's wrong. This is what you've done to us. We don't appreciate that. But we're giving you the opportunity to fix it. We've been wronged. Please fix this. And if you don't, we have a means to take care of business. And that's what the Second Amendment is all about. It's about being able to protect you and yours out in the frontier against wild things, wild people, and wild government. At the end of the day, that's really what the Second Amendment is all about. And even as recent as the Heller decision in the Supreme Court in the late 2000s, once again, the Supreme Court, even in modern era, in a place like Washington, D.C., ruled that the Second Amendment applies to individuals. It applies to individuals. And once again, the Supreme Court says it applies to individuals. Let us read this last word here. These last few words shall not be infringed. So, having said all of this, it is perfectly fine, perfectly acceptable for people to own firearms, to use them for lawful purposes. I think it's a good thing. I can only speak highly of it as long as things are used for righteousness, for the right purposes. As long as things are used for the right purposes, then anything can be useful. So with all that being said, the Second Amendment has definitely been here from the beginning. It's here to stay. Hopefully it will be here to stay for a long, long, long time. And as Americans, we should all read up on it and understand exactly where it came from and what it's all about. I highly encourage maybe reading David E. Young's book, The Origin of the Second Amendment. I think it's excellent. It was even cited in multiple Supreme Court cases as a standard of measure as far as the way that the Second Amendment was to be interpreted in an original manner. All right. Thank you very much and have a great day.